Hey YouTube, I just got off a very interesting call and I wanted to do a candid introduction to this lady, Loren Swift, who's a brilliant author and she's just written her debut work. It's called The Earthkeeper's Handbook. I'm still reading through my copy because it's just so good. I want to take it slow. I want to really slow down and dial into some of the tools that she shared. As a spiritual coach myself, I'm actually putting things into practice. So just first of all, if you like reading books, then this is a genuine recommendation I have for you. There's a lot in here. And everything that you'll find is a mixture of science, of psychology, and then the mystical parts of it. It'll really take you deeper into self-awareness and self-reflection. Along with this book, I am introducing you to her through this dialogue, and you can listen to it as if it were a podcast, or if you want, you can watch our reactions and see our video as well. As you do that, I just want you to take a deep breath and be super grateful with me to her for being here and to sharing this light with us. That said, I'm going to transition into the video. I hope you like it. Drop me a comment if you do. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for being here, Loren. I am super excited to discuss your debut book, The Earth Keeper's Handbook, today. I want to begin by welcoming you here. I have some amazing audience that would love to know more about your work. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm happy to speak with you.
Thank you for doing this. Can I start by just diving into the name of the book? What do you mean by the Earth Keeper's Handbook?
That's a good question. I am in love with this planet. And I almost feel tears coming up just saying that. I love this planet so much. And my focus is actually to invite people to do some deep inner work, to come to the place of deep self-connection so that we can establish a sense of care for ourselves and authenticity and care with one another. Because to me, that's the route to come to care for the planet. And I want us to care. I want us to care about each other, and I want us to care about the planet. And so it's a long roundabout way to get us to work together, to collaborate, to take care of each other and to take care of the planet. And so I want us all to be earth keepers.
Wow, that is meaningful. I have goosebumps as you say that. We're all earth keepers. And did you know my name means earth in Sanskrit?
I did not know that. Name, Vasundra.
Vasundra, yes. So as you were writing this book, I noticed that you've put in your heart with a lot of different client perspectives, and you've shared a lot of your tools. They're a good enmeshing of talking about grieving and nonviolent communication and going into some of the psychotherapy work that you've done. So could you touch base on what are 3 tools that have resonated the most in your personal development that you apply in your own day-to-day life?
I certainly will. And they all are in the book. I think the most important thing is self-reflection, which I teach and share with people a deep way of doing that, which I call self-connection. And I use 3 what I call personal coordinates, internal reference points, which I think are so valuable nowadays to use, in particular because we have so much going on outside of us. There's so much distraction, there's so much polarization, there's so much opinionated things that I think it's very confusing, the world today. And I think we're probably going to go into more and more confusion with all the upheavals on every level, from the climate to the social to the political. So I really think it's crucial that we each find a way to connect with our own internal reference points as a beginning point. And I think all spiritual practices have always indicated the importance of going inward. So a lot of what I refer to is to go inward, to connect with our self first. And the 3 reference points that I suggest are our physical sensations, that we really are aware of what our body's actually telling us, our emotions that are going on, and the qualities of life that are up and mattering to us. And I spend quite a bit of time talking about the qualities of life, which in the nonviolent communication lexicon, they call universal human needs. And I've come to rename them for my purposes, because I think it invites us to go inward more. I think the term needs invites us to go outward more than inward. And because I have found that they're actually truly like streams of energy. They're streams of consciousness and energetics that we can invite and choose consciously to embody.
Mhm.
So self-reflection, self-connection, and embodiment. And to me, this is where the spiritual and the practical really dovetail more than anything I've ever come across. I've been doing spiritual practices since I was about 13. And this is the most practical thing I've ever found, because I can choose to consciously embody the quality of life that I want to experience in the world. It's very powerful.
It is. It is. Just listening to you speak about it makes me wonder, over all these years, right? Decades worth of self-development and spiritual development. Has there ever been a time where you paused and you thought, what is the point? When is this going to end? This just seems to keep going and going and going.
Yes. I ask that question a lot. What is the point? And it's like a recalibration time. And it usually happens when I come up against a new inner block, or a new inner awareness, or a new, what I call, when I come across the gap between my ideal, what I profess matters to me, versus the reality of how I'm showing up in the world. And that gap I find to be so painful. When I find it, then it causes me to really stop and recalibrate and reevaluate what I'm doing, how I'm living, my self image, my self identity. And then inevitably the why questions come up, like, why am I doing this? And what is the purpose? And I go deep. I end up just dropping way down inside until I find the ground, the ground of being that I can trust and land into and hold, that will hold me. That process of surrender, I think, is also an invaluable spiritual tool to surrender through the distractions, and until we find a ground that really resonates and holds who we are. So I think maybe you need to ask another question, or help me with that thread again.
Yeah, but I think you answered that brilliantly. And I love what you said in the end, which is surrender until you find the ground. Because the one thing that happens when you surrender is you're like, now what? Where do I go? You feel groundless. And it can almost feel like you're falling, 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 and there's nothing to catch you.
Yes.
But I love how you're like, come back into your power and catch yourself in that surrender.
Well, that's the thing. Most of us are taught to resist surrender because we have a sense of needing to control outcomes, and that's an illusion. We can certainly set intentions, but surrendering is a letting go of control, and it's not knowing the outcome. It's trusting the process and being open to whatever happens. The amazing thing I've discovered about the deep dive surrenders is that I inevitably am caught. I mean, I go through pain, anguish, all kinds of things, and I have to want it. I have to want to experience that degree of life and being aliveness. and dropping through layers of experience. And then the ground actually is there. It's not myself who catches me. It's the ground of being. There's a ground of being holding us all the time.
So good.
And it takes sometimes pain and anguish and huge disruptions in our lives for us to get to the point where we are forced to surrender. But it can also be done by choice. And it's a beautiful way to find that we are being held all the time. And then it brings us back to gratitude and joy for being alive.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm curious because once you're on the path, for many of us, we're sort of forced into our spiritual journeys because of a calamity that happens, and you know that the outer world is just an illusion. But for people that want to experience a greater way of life, and they know they have to go through pain into that reality to experience that aliveness, right? How can we encourage them to keep going? For instance, when we start off, it's like the dark night of the soul. You're crying a lot. You don't understand. You're purging. Why is this happening to me, right? All of this pain, first of all, I don't know if we have an answer, but where does this come from? And we're actually going on a path which is better for us. Then why is it painful?
Yeah, that's a good question. My simple answer is pain leads the way, or pain points the way to where we are out of alignment with ourselves and our true, I don't know. I hesitate to use the word higher self or soul's direction or something like that. There's so many ways to interpret those words, but I think the true nature of who we are, when we bump up against things that are not that, it's painful. And that the easiest, maybe not the easiest, the simplest, most direct way through to the other side or out of the pain is through it. And the more we resist the pain or distract ourselves from the pain, the longer it will go on. So pain actually doesn't have to be painful. I mean, it's just that we're kind of taught to resist emotions, to resist, let's say, even conflict, to resist disagreements. And we're taught to be separate and disengaged even from ourselves and our own knowing. All that is painful.
It is.
And coming back into alignment, sometimes I think if we, and a lot of this is in the book, is to retrain ourselves, reprogram ourselves to be open to feeling our feelings, to be really alive. I have a short story about a personal experience. I was actually, it was in a psychotherapy sessions where I was the client, and I don't remember exactly what the topic was that we were speaking about, but I suddenly drew in this breath because I saw myself on my deathbed, looking back on my life and realizing that I had been run by fear. How much of my life I had been run by fear, and that basically I had emotionally abandoned myself for my life. And so in that moment, I said, okay, whenever I become aware of something that I'm afraid of, I'm going to move towards it. So, it's the way we conceive of things that often turns it into pain or makes us resistant to it. And it's the resistance actually that's painful. The surrender into it isn't painful. It's being alive. When we feel our grief, when we feel our anguish, when we feel our life, our love, even our heart breaking open, we could consider that painful. But that's what it feels like to be alive.
Yeah. The idea of tapping into our full human experience is just so new to all of us, right? Emotional intelligence, emotional awareness. This is all just so brand new.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's for so many reasons, so much of our aliveness, we've been holding in, and it's really time for us to step out into the world, step into life fully, step into who we really are. And that's why I call it also leadership, assuming leadership in a new world, because we all, I believe, in order to help co-create the world that we want, that each one of us wants, we need to find the leader inside of ourselves and to lead from the inside out so that we can be fully alive.
I definitely echo that thought. At least be accountable for ourselves and where we are, and then work from there. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts of the book so far is this little box which says what empathy is not. And I would love if you could read that out to us because it's just so good.
Okay. And then maybe we can talk a little about what empathy is. There's a lot of talk about empathy these days, like Brene Brown in particular. I love her work. And what empathy is not is giving advice. Like, you know, what I would do is, or have you tried? Empathy is not sympathy or commiserating. So, like, I feel so bad for you, or I wish that hadn't happened to you, or yeah, that happened to me once. Empathy is not fact finding. Like, when did that happen to you?
Mm.
It is not psychoanalyzing. Why do you think that happened?
Mm.
It is not agreeing or colluding. Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I hate when that happens. And it's not turning the focus onto yourself.
Mm.
So, like, whenever that happens to me, I get really upset.
Mm. When I hear this and when I read across this the first time, I was like, what is empathy? Like I've been doing all of these things minus the sympathy part. It's like you want to help the person, almost you kind of tap in as a coach or like try to be their friend and be like, oh, like how did you feel about it? And oh yeah, I can relate to that. That's happened to me, right? What is it then?
Yeah. What is it if it isn't all these things that we do? And all these things we do because we do care about people and because we're feeling other people's pain. But actually, my sense is that a lot of the reason we do these things is because we're uncomfortable with other people's pain. And that is because we're uncomfortable with our own pain. So if we haven't really done some of our own inner work where we're willing to feel our own feelings and we're willing to be honest with ourselves about what's going on, it's really hard to be present with other people's pain or discomfort or conflict. So what empathy is being present with someone, being able to hold space, what I call with tender attention and curiosity, and just be with someone with whatever is going on for them, without judgment, without needing it to be different, without trying to fix them. And it seems it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy because we think helping people is helping them move away from whatever they're feeling if it seems just uncomfortable. Whereas to stay with something, to help someone just hang there, actually helps them find their own internal wisdom or process their own feelings or find their own solutions, which are usually a lot more meaningful to them. And so there's an active type of empathy that I talk about a lot, which I've learned through the nonviolent communication work, where you ask a very simple question when someone's talking. You listen very carefully to the essence of what they're saying, what's really mattering to them. And that's where I use the language of the universal qualities of life to help name things. And you just ask a simple question to reflect, to find out of curiosity if you've heard them accurately. And that helps offer the person reference points so they can take it in and go, is that what's going on? And discover if that is it or if it's something else, and then they can just clarify.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I think that has been one of my aha moments where
Yeah.
in it's not about wondering what happened to them in the sense of fact finding, is this what happened? Was this true? Was this not true? To them, let them have all of it, let them have the denial of it or the grieving of it or of the anger of it and
Mm-hmm.
being with them along the way. And that is so hard, right? If you've not done your inner work, you immediately want to run and pacify them and be their savior.
Yes, we want to rescue each other.
Yeah.
And although that's a noble intention,
It is.
it might not be what's being required unless it's a fire or a flood or so.
Yeah, I hear that. And even in circumstances where you could have saved the other person, you think, was I running away from saving myself? And am I trying to justify it by trying to take care of you?
Absolutely. I know that that's been my tendency. It's a lot easier to focus on other people
Mm.
and to see what they need and to try to help them than it necessarily is to look inside and do what I need to do to become the person I really want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. There's another line which I have underlined. I don't underline my books, by the way. So for me, this is a big deal, but it's with pencil. So I can erase it. Um, when our doing is infused with our being, then there is no separation. We are fully present in ourselves and engaged with life.
Mm.
It's just so good. You have a way of expressing and going to the point of it. Sometimes I notice when people are talking about self-help and spiritual development, a lot of the concepts begin to enmesh with other concepts, and there's not much freshness there. But this feels more direct. It feels like it's coming from the heart. It's coming by direct experience, and I just want to honor that.
Mm.
Thank you for
Thank you.
putting thank you for putting a resource that we can actually go to, and just for the listeners to know, and for the setting more context about the book, you give us powerful tools for each chapter, right? You give us practices. This is why it's a handbook. You
Yeah,
actually
it's
have
fun.
something to do,
Yeah.
right? So the education bit goes in, but there's also practice that you
Mhm.
can take away from there. And I love how you've quoted NVC quite a bit. I'm very new to that. I've heard of it. And even in Eastern philosophy, we have something called nonviolence in Vedanta, right? So I would be interested to hear what NVC work entails and how is that helping people in the West?
Okay. Nonviolent communication was actually named that, given that term by Marshall Rosenberg, who had studied some of the great peacemakers like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and various people who were able to transcend conflict and offer a different way of being. And he was trying to translate ahimsa. I think it's a Hindi word, ahimsa, which means to cause no harm, to do no harm. And there really isn't an English translation that says that. And nonviolence is the best you could do.
Mm.
And the whole point and the brilliant thing that he did was he was able to find states of being that are common to all human beings. And that's why he calls them universal human needs.
Mm.
And the most, and that's such a powerful tool. And that's what I call universal qualities of life, because we can summon them at choice. Because a quality of life is an energetic state of being that anybody in the world could want or could manifest or could experience. The specific way, the specific strategy that happens, that could happen, is infinite. So the way where conflict tends to happen is at the strategy level. Like, for example, we all want security.
Mm.
Some people want security by creating peace in the world. Some people want security by creating armaments. and protecting themselves. So those are polar opposites in terms of the strategy, but they both are after the same experience, which is the sense of security and safety. So that's the powerful thing about being able to name these qualities of life, is that then we have a language to transcend conflict, and we have a language to connect with every human being's heart, every human being's, their essential yearnings and longings that they want. We can name those, and therefore people across these vast differences can actually understand each other on this human level. And that was the brilliant thing that Marshall Rosenberg put into a formula. Now, I've also found over my years of teaching nonviolent communication that the formula soon becomes a hindrance to actually communicating with people. And so somewhere along the line, I found a way to teach the consciousness of nonviolent communication, which is where you want to be. The formula of nonviolent communication, which is fabulous to learn, and you can find it in Marshall Rosenberg's book called Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. But it's a map to the heart. And I decided, well, rather than using the map, let's just go straight to the heart. And that's where the embodiment of the quality of life takes us. And so I really focus on that practice throughout the book, in the various exercises, to teach people right away to embody the consciousness of nonviolent communication without having to go through the arduous process of learning the steps. And because we can so easily put it in the context of our right, wrong thinking. And that's the other amazing thing about nonviolent communication, is it takes us really beyond polarities and outside of the right, wrong matrix. And so when we go directly to our hearts, then we can speak naturally without having to know a formula. And I think that's a lot more expedient and allows us to be, I think, more connected with one another.
Beautiful. I know how every system that is developed at one point has its limitations, and it's just so delicious to see us constantly evolving, even on top of those things which we originally found to be so profound. You notice after a point, it's like your journey begins. And it takes me back to Buddha's story, where he went from teacher to teacher, from saint to saint, searching for enlightenment. And after every point, the teacher would be like, you know what, this is all I know. Now you have to go find somebody else. And then hop on to the next. And then eventually he's just like, you know what, I'm just going to sit and find enlightenment.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's just, we use these tools as long as we are not empowered. And then the moment we have our power, then it's just an inward journey. You keep going in.
Yes. And once we have that inward, that deep knowing, that connection with ourselves, that we can trust our inner knowing, then we can show up outwardly, I think, in the way that we really want to, that can be helpful. And we can add and contribute our gifts and our skills to the world.
Yeah.
We can really live our values, I think, once we've done that inner connection on that level.
Yeah. Then there's no double standards. But speaking of like our gifts, do you think that, and this could be like a yes or no, do you think that we all have a particular purpose here on earth?
Well, that's, I think my quick answer is yes, otherwise wouldn't be here. What that is only for that individual person to discover, I think, and to live into.
And have you ever wondered about the discovery process, or how do you get there? Like, we're born, and then we learn how to go to school and we educate ourselves, and then you start having a crisis of, oh, who am I supposed to really be? What was I meant to do? Why do you think the system is designed that way, and why it takes people so long to get to the answer?
That's a good question. I mean, yes, I have thought about that a lot in my life. Yeah, I mean, a lot of I remember at various stages in my life of my own inner personal work. I mean, not that I'm anywhere close to done, but I remember stopping and going, oh, I've come this far, or, oh, now I'm at the beginning. I always feel like, oh, now I'm at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just keep learning more and more and more, and more and more and more unveils itself as we go. So it's just this mystery, this ongoing, unfolding mystery that I don't think it's ever gonna not, be there and not unfold. But I think it's a matter of having curiosity and courage. I talk also a lot in the book about courage. It takes a heck of a lot of courage to willingly keep walking into the pain or the unknown or whatever it is. And I think to begin to have a sense of objectivity, of being able to kind of observe ourselves or observe the process or observe what we've been taught, observe how we're educated, really is very helpful, because as soon as we stop assuming or blindly walking along with the program we've been given, then we're stepping onto the path.
Mm.
And so much that we've been taught is about keeping us small, keeping us blind, keeping us dependent on external things. And it's just that externalization of our experience is getting heightened, more and more and more heightened, particularly with all the artificial intelligent things that are in our lives now. And I think that's the hard part. The programming is becoming more and more and more intense, and we're programmable. So a lot of the inner work, and the reason it's important to go inside, is to basically to deprogram ourselves from what we've been given and what we've been taught and the assumptions that we've been raised in, to find freedom, to find true liberation, and to find true empowerment from the inside out. And that's why, again, why I call it leadership. Leadership has got to start from the inside, so that we have a sense of, really, why am I here? And, various people have different answers. The Dalai Lama says it's to experience joy. I mean, there's, when you get down to it, there's some very, very simple answers. There's joy and beauty and love and connection and all these beautiful things that are things to be exuberant over. And I think that celebration, more than anything, to me, that's what we need now, is celebration and connection and remembering who we really are, and that we need each other. We really need each other. And I'm very concerned about the state of the world right now with the mandated isolations. I think it's really detrimental to who we are. And that part of finding our leadership is standing up and knowing that we need each other, and we need to be together. We need to celebrate. We need to enjoy life. And so that's kind of a long answer, but it's a big question. And but the most important thing is going inside and finding the way to trust yourself, to trust ourselves from the inside out.
Yeah. Thank you for taking all these loaded questions. These are, by the way, totally unprepared, so just whatever's coming to mind.
That's great.
I could keep talking to you for like another hour, to be honest. I'm really enjoying this. But...
Well, I am too. I'm happy to continue. Whatever you like, and you can use whatever you want from it.
Yeah. I would like to talk a little bit more about the whole process of, as spiritual coaches, there comes a stage where you wonder, am I ever going to be ready to serve people? right? And it can be a big question because a lot of people are into healing now. They all are understanding our need to educate the world as we go along the way. So, what is your tip to people that are aspiring to help other people professionally? Would you consider it something that they need to prepare through a certification or a degree, or can they just start where they are?
Um, oh, well, I think we have to start where we are. There's no way of achieving some final destination and then I'm good and then I'm ready to share. Because all that is, again, is feeding the ego that says, oh, I've arrived somewhere and now I can show up as this identity that I want to show up as. So that's just playing the same game. I think humility is so important. I've been working with a Maya wisdom teacher for a few years. And one of the images they have is of people going up and down a ladder, but the people up above are putting their hands down and helping the people below them. And the people above them are putting their hands down and helping the people below them. So there's this constant process of us helping each other because we're all on different planes and different levels and different whatever places in our personal evolution. And I think, to me, the most important thing would be to know our motivations, to know our intentions and motivations. In other words, is it coming from my heart? Am I truly wanting the best for all concerned? Or am I somehow meeting some other kind of need by showing up as a helper? I mean, we're all meeting some need. I believe that contribution, and helping other people is an intrinsic human need. So in other words, I don't think there's truly a thing called altruism, because we're fed when we help people, we feel better. It's part of who we are. We like to help one another. It's what we do with that. Humility is so important because we're here to help each other. We need each other. And I think in whatever way we can help each other is the best thing we can do. And then to offer it up and to say, to have gratitude that someone's able to receive and benefit from what I was able to give and offer, because I've learned so much from other people who gave to me. So I think it's really about trusting your motivations, that most of us have true motivations. We want to be helpful. We want to be good people. We want to contribute to the well-being of others on the planet. So it's trusting that process and trusting that what you have to offer is valuable, and doing it with humility.
Such a key word, right? Humility. I liked how you said be aware of your intention. And I kind of want to speak to that because sometimes we do find ourselves going into more of like me first, right? It's about the money. It's going to pay my bills. It's going to feed my children. We are the ones to decide if that intention too is good or bad, right? In the grand scheme of things, none of it is really good or bad. It's
Right.
just saying, okay, is this the work I call is as a label for humanity. But as I do this work, I'm actually catering to a smaller part, which is like my home, right? There's nothing wrong in that, but it's just getting over this idea that I have to be selfless. There's, like you said, there might not be really such a thing as selfless. There will always be something that is taken care of because if we think of it, isn't it fair? Like that's how it is. Like it's karma. It has to balance out, right?
Well, this another, looking at the assumptions that we're holding. I mean, this is a topic that's been covered a lot, like the assumption that a spiritual person is an ascetic or, doesn't have material wealth or those sorts of things. I think that's been pretty well debunked, but it still hangs on. But it arises from the programming of scarcity. There isn't enough, which is part of the patriarchal paradigm. Scarcity, separation, and isolation and powerlessness are all an aspect of the patriarchy, which is why the the feminine, the aspect of the divine feminine is coming back in so strongly right now to balance that out. But thinking that if I'm spiritual, I don't deserve to have material wealth is part of that paradigm of scarcity. So if there's so many layers to all this, but if I am to trust in the abundance and the beauty of the earth, the world and the universe, I mean, if we look around us on the planet, we see that it is abundant. The only reason it seems scarce is because of the way it's been divvied up and the way the resources are distributed. That's what creates scarcity. Before there was industrialization, everybody on the planet had everything they needed because it's all given by the earth. Everything has already been given. So, and I haven't gotten to this point, but my understanding theoretically is that if I truly, truly trusted in that everything is given and the abundance of the universe, and that I live in a benevolent planet on a benevolent universe, that I trusted that. And I know some people, I have some very close friends that actually live by these premises. Everything works out one way or another, whether they have a lot of money or little money. So there is no right or wrong. Like you said, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. There's just energy and there's just resources, and it's our intentions that determines how we utilize those. And then that also determines the consequences that come back to us.
Yeah. The bigger your intention, the further it goes.
Yeah. So I think we need to trust that. I don't like the word deserve either. That's a big thing in nonviolent communication, and Marshall Rosenberg is like, the deserve language is also part of the patriarchy because that's what creates punishment and reward. So abundance just is, material well-being just is, or hardship just is. It's not punishment, it's not reward, it just is.
That's so tricky. The ego mind doesn't know that because it thrives in duality, right? If one thing is above, the other thing has to be below. Whereas it's always about training it and saying everything's at level ground, right? Equality.
Yeah, it's our interpretation that makes it right or wrong or good or bad.
Yeah. So good. Such meaningful conversation. It was really like, it's the middle of the week for us and we're just basking away in the conversations. I think one thing I would love to wrap up this whole conversation with is there is hope, right? This is why we write such books, we read such content, because we have hope inside of us. And this is just a mechanism, something on the outer part of our reality, which gives us that inner hope, and it gives us something to bind it together and say, okay, you have hope. This is what you can do with it, right? So it's mainly about picking either that part of ourselves, which is scared, which is contracted, or moving into the expansiveness of our being, and then just going bigger from there and tapping into more and more of these resources. If you could share one thing that could fuel everybody's hope in these times, what is one thing in this moment, whatever comes to you, that you would like to share with us?
I think to spend time in nature, to spend time on the earth, in the water, in the mountains, in nature, is the most hopeful place to be, because there we connect with our roots, with the real planet, with where we really get life, where life comes from. We connect with our hearts and with true caring, and that's where, to me, caring comes from. When we connect to the planet and the earth and the beauty that she is, it really fills us. And to me, that's where our hope lies, is remembering the beauty and the abundance of the planet, and thereby being inspired to give back.
And that was a wrap of our beautiful conversation. It touched me in a very different space in my heart and in my spirit. I hope that you got a lot out of our meaningful conversation. I hope you send love to Loren, both through the comments and by buying her book and practicing her teachings. There is a lot of value in which you get to learn, not just for your sake, but for the collective consciousness. Well, that's me wrapping it up with this interview and this amazing, amazing person. Until next time, love, light, and awareness. Bye.